Condo, co-op, townhome? What's the difference? That's what we're going to discuss today. Stay tuned. Hi, it is Ashley with Keller Williams Real Estate up in Everett. And today I want to talk about that difference. Condo, co-op, townhouse. What's the difference, okay? But before I get started, I would just want to say in this video, I am working with a buyer right now who is looking for a brick house built in the 1940s or 1930s. So if you are thinking about selling and you are in the Everett area and you own a brick home built in the 1940s or 1930s, go ahead and give me a call or send me an email, and we can see what we can do. All right, so let me start the video. Okay, so I think people frequently wonder this, okay, because a condo and a co-op can seem kind of similar, as can a townhouse, especially here in the Everett area when you have like these little sort of like townhouse looking type communities, which means typically with the townhouse you actually own like it's almost like its own standalone unit. So you own like the land that it's sitting on and the airspace above it. Sometimes in condos it can be a little bit different, because condo can sometimes almost be like a little bit like an apartment, right? So you own a unit like inside of a building. And so they're a little bit different in that way, but condos and townhouses really function very similarly when it comes to financing. They're both easier to finance. You usually have like a lower HOA fees. Kind of in this Seattle and Everett market, it's a little bit harder to tell the difference. Sometimes it's very similar. You can't be evicted from your townhome or your condo, which is an interesting thing to think about, but you could be foreclosed on, for example. Let's see. And, really, because the financing is so easy, it is also, at the end of the day, easier to sell your unit when you're ready to sell versus a co-op. And lastly, usually, if there is a rental cap that, they may have a rental cap, and we'll talk more about rental caps later, but basically you can usually almost always rent out your condo or your townhouse. And that is much simpler to do compared to a co-op. Now, a co-op, on the other hand, is a little bit different. So when you purchase a co-op, what you're actually doing is you're buying shares in a corporation. And what that corporation does is it then leases to you a unit inside of the co-op. And so it's almost, so in that sense, like the unit that's inside of the co-op is almost sort of like an apartment unit in a way, which is sort of similar to some of those condos maybe that you're thinking about that are in those like big gigantic buildings and you're like on whatever, A203, and then you're in there, okay? But you are basically buying into a corporation, and for that reason, when you purchase a co-op, it's a little bit different. So you have to get approval from the board to buy the co-op. There are usually more restrictions when it comes to renting out your unit. Sometimes the co-ops have in their rules that you're not allowed to rent it out at all, okay? And because you're buying into a corporation, financing is also challenging. So like if you want to purchase a co-op unit and you want to use conventional financing, a lot of times you can't use your current lender, and then there are special co-op lenders that lend for co-op specifically. And I've seen that frequently, at least in Seattle. And lastly, in a co-op, interestingly enough, you could be evicted from your unit because really you've purchased shares and they're leasing to you your unit, which is very different, okay? As far as, how the, sort of like HOA works, so they all have HOAs and they all have basically designated community members that are helping direct the sort of the structure of the community as a whole. So that happens in all three scenarios, either like a townhome community or a co-op community or a condo community, but they do have different rules. And so that's basically it. If I had to sort of run it down, townhouses and condos are very similar. Co-ops are kind of like the oddball. Townhouses, condos, very easy to finance. Because they're very easy to finance, it's very easy to sell them when you're ready to sell. Co-ops, on the other hand, more difficult to finance, and then for that same reason, more difficult to sell, right? Because remember, you have to get board approval. So that means that when you sell, your potential buyer then has to get board approval. They have to find some way to fund the purchase and all that stuff. The townhouse and the condo, you can't be really evicted from your unit, you could be foreclosed on, whereas with the co-op, on the other hand, you could be evicted. And remember, you're only like leasing a unit from the corporation. And then with the condo and the townhouse, you're actually buying the unit, and if it's like a townhouse, you're buying like the airspace above, like the whole entire thing. Whereas with the co-op, remember, you're purchasing shares in a corporation that owns the community. Okay, so those are the differences. You know, condo, townhouse, co-op. That's the differences for you. If you like the video, hit the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Facebook and hit my website, ashleybolden.com, and I will see you again soon, YouTube.